This is Hoops Forum, a production of Radius Athletics and a quick timeout podcast. I'm Tony Miller, and I'm joined once again this week by my co-host Randy Sherman. Before we get into today's show, a big thanks to our sponsors at 323 Sports. Here in the middle of winter, a lot of us are in cold conditions. 323 Sports has some great outerwear options for your teams and also for your athletic staff. If you're interested in any of those, you can find out more. Visit 323sports.com, or you can get in contact with a sales rep, sales at 323sports.com. They'll be sure to do it right for your sports program. Depending on when you're watching this or listening to this, this is the time of year that last 1/3 of the season, start of postseason play. The little things can mean the difference between you going on to the next round or the end of your season. I'd consider our topic today one of those little things that could potentially cost you a game. We're talking about the dangers of overhelping. Randy, can you briefly describe what we refer to when we're talking about overhelping? There's maybe some coaches out there who are hearing the phrase and thinking, no such thing. You can never have too much of a good thing, and this thing being helping. And then maybe once you describe what that is, why can it be so dangerous to your defensive system?
Yeah, so we're talking defense today, and typically, a big part of defense is helping on drives, helping on screens. That's a common word that is associated with defense, and it's a vital part of a good defense. A good helping team is a good defensive team. So I would say that you're right. There might be some watchers or listeners thinking over helping. There's no such thing. That's like being too rich or too good looking, right? Like that you can't be either one of those. So yeah, I would say that the dangers of over helping would be that when we over help, we leave ourselves susceptible to good 3-point attempts from our opponent. So I think in a day and age where more and more coaches are emphasizing shooting, the things that analytics tell us about spacing and inside out threes and things like that being such a vital part to offensive efficiency, over the course of a coach's career, if they're entering the profession, like someone like your age is going to be in the career, for a while, you're going to see nothing but an increase in importance in defending the 3-point line. The data helps coaches get to a place where they're emphasizing shooting and spacing more and things like that. So avoiding situations like you see on the screen here, where a player has driven and there's 4 defenders who's basically converged at the ball. Avoiding those situations are going to become more and more important. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just avoiding the situation where we help, but help the right amount, and help with a specific player, knowing that they're the help beforehand, and keeping ourselves from totally collapsing like you see on the screen here. And that's what we're talking about, is just really defining where help comes from, when to help, when not to help, and how to avoid a situation where we have guys converging at the basketball when they should be sort of like sticking to their man to make sure that we don't give up a highly efficient shot for our opponent.
To your point about the emphasis on the 3-point shot, maybe some coaches who are thinking, well, at my level, the 3-point shot really doesn't burn us. But I think as offenses evolve, it's not necessarily what I've seen from the sideline. It's not necessarily the drive to the paint. In this case, all 5 guys have at least 1 foot in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
But when the ball's kicked out, it may not be the shot that kills you, but that's a long closeout, especially now this year. I'm dealing with an extended 3-point line at the college level. So you have another half step to a full step that a player has to close out. The emphasis now on offense is to drive the closeouts, which then leads to somebody having to actually help, which now puts your team in rotations. And it's just that domino effect.
Yep.
You end up multiple guys having to scurry and change who they're guarding And this is why in the NBA, you watch one possession of NBA and it is just drive, make somebody help, kick, rotate, drive, kick, rotate.
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, somebody's going to end up with an open shot. And so, even if the 3-point shot isn't as big of a deal for you at your level, like I said, as offenses get smarter and they start driving those closeouts, I think overhelping is going to show itself to be a bigger deal and more of a problem for defenses going forward as offenses continue to evolve.
Yeah, staying out of closeout, staying out of rotation. But I would say I would add to that of like in the picture we see here, the player Jefferson on the back of his uniform here has driven, and he has drawn the whole defense. So that's going to happen, and we're going to get penetrated. That's sort of like the cost of doing business. But when we do, how can we make it to where maybe we can get the driver to take a tough, acrobatic, contested shot rather than an easy pass to, what's the tougher play? The tough, contested, acrobatic with a hand in your face, or drive, draw, and then throw it out to a guy standing still for a easy shot. So that's what we're going to talk about, is to sort of like avoid rotation, avoid closeouts, and avoid situations to where the offense can quite easily go from a tough shot to a very makeable, easy shot.
So let's go ahead and show them some scenarios that would lead to this.
Okay. Obviously probably the most, most often times that you'll need to help would be, on dribble penetration. So what I have depicted here is Villanova, 4 outs from a few years ago. And the player circled there is about to begin what I call a lane drive, right? It's going to drive from that right slot area with his right hand, a lane drive. So the defense is going to need to help. They're going to need to help and protect the rim. So one thing I would say is a phrase that I like to use with my team is one, our question I should say, was, does the penetration, is it even affecting the rim? Is it even dangerous, right? So in this case, if number 2 here was to get past his guy and threaten the rim, we need help. I see when I watch a team who overhelps, one characteristic I'm often seeing is they help on the dribble, not the drive, right? Like just a drive that maybe the on-ball defender's got it contained. He rounded it off, or she rounded it off. It's not really downhill toward the rim, and just because the ball hit the ground, someone's yelling help and someone's coming, right? So, and then you put yourself in bad situations that way. So one question to begin with is this penetration going to be dangerous? And this, I picked this possession because yes, he's going to threaten the rim. This player he's got a gap to drive through, and he's going to threaten the rim. So if the possession is dangerous, then help. Okay, that begs the next question: where does help come from? Here you see I've got it highlighted and zoomed in. That in this case, help came from everywhere, right? Like help came from everywhere, and there might be coaches who are looking at this going, that's great effort. That's exactly what I want to see from my team. But I would say that that's a little bit overzealous in help. In that, yeah, you stop the layup. This guy's not going to drive it for a layup. But what's going to result is an easy kick out, extra pass, 3-point attempt. So it's sort of like walking that fine line between, we've got to help protect our defense against giving up layups, because you'll go out of business quick giving up layups, right? So and we have to be able to prevent threes, good standstill catch and shoot threes. If you would go back to that first diagram or first screenshot. So a simple rule that I like to use with my team is, if we could just, if it was possible to draw a line down the midline, right? We've got 3 players from Oklahoma State on the help side, and then 2 on the ball side nearest to us. So our rule was all help comes from the help side. All help comes from the help side. I was particular about my language. I didn't call it ball side, back side, weak side. I called it help side. So that's your job. And in particular, it comes from the lowest man. So the guy that you see there that on the help side, the lowest man, the man closest to the baseline, would be the primary helper at the rim or before the rim, before the paint. We call it attacking penetration. The guy nearest to us on the ball side, we're not going to help off the ball side. We may stunt, we may swipe, we may shrink the gap like he has a little bit here, but we're not going to open up and help in and then out and give up an easy kick on the ball side. We're going to make the help side help. Help come from the help side. All right. So what you see in the frame, the next frame, is Oklahoma State did it all. They helped off the corner. They helped from the low eye. The low man who's supposed to just sink and help the helper and perhaps block out the backside. He's also sort of ready to leave his feet and help. And then it looks like somebody else rotated into the screen and helped. So if you go to the next screenshot, you see the result. And that's a kick out that ended up here. And for a team like Villanova with their shooting and spacing, that's a layup. That's a layup. And you may be looking at this going, that's not a layup for the teams that I play. I'm perfectly happy with giving up that shot. Well, I would say until you're not. Like, who are you trying to beat? Are you trying to beat the teams that can play or can't? I'm trying to beat the teams that can play. So we can't do this against the teams that can't play. The teams that can are going to make this shot. So the overhelp here put them in a situation where they give up a big advantage shot. That's probably what would you say, about 10 or 12 feet of space there that this guy has to shoot it. And that's a layup.
That begs the question. I would encourage coaches to track your closeouts and how far away you need to be. You may be okay with being that far away, like Randy said, with certain teams in your conference, but chances are the longer that you proceed into the postseason, you're going to we've found that once you get to that 4+ range, teams usually shoot somewhere between about 50 or 60+% from 3-point range. It doesn't really matter who's out there. So
yeah,
to your point, you may be okay with that early on in the season against somebody that's not that good, but that's not going to lead to good things, because, even if you teach your players to go out there and, I've got a quick guy, he can get out there and attack it. Like I said, offenses are being taught to attack that, to draw another help defender and then kick it to somebody else who can shoot. And chances are they're going to pitch to somebody who can shoot the ball well.
So if I could, what I'd like to do is break this down into 3 questions regarding staying out of overhelping situations. Is the penetration even threatening the rim? That's one we've already talked about. 2, where are we helping from? We've already talked about that one. From the help side. The lowest man on the help side, that helps us avoid like the total collapse of our defense. And then the third question is anyone available to help the helper? So I can't put it any simpler than this, Tony, when we're talking about how do we stay out of overhelping, Randy. Okay. My response to that question would be we want to help with 2 players. That's it. Not 3, not 4, not all of us. 2 players. Help and help the helper. And we only help when someone is available to help the helper. Like the screen, if you would go back to the very first of those 3 screenshots, we're going to help from the low eye, the lowest man on the help side, and then we have someone available to help the helper. So we call that bottom out, top down. So bottom out would attack the penetration, try to meet it outside the paint. If you're a step late, do your best to get vertical, don't foul, contest the shot, do what you need to do. And then we've got the in this case, the middle eye, this guy there that you have your cursor on, top down. He would drop down to block out the backside or prevent the dribbler from dropping off a little bounce pass if this guy was to cut, or if that was a post, say like in the dunker spot or something. We got to slide inside that. So we only help when there's someone available to help the helper. Like if this guy off the corner wanted to help here, well, who's available to help the helper? Nobody, right? Like if he was to show in and kick out, he's got to be two places at once, and that's pretty hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what you see here, the second screen is exactly what we don't want to happen. The help side did okay. This guy that's dropped to help the helper. He's probably over helping a bit instead of just securing the backside rebound. He looks like he's also going to go up and contest the shot. But we helped off the ball side, and then a fourth guy from somewhere helped in there too. So those are the three questions, that I would say, let's keep that. Let's make sure our players understand if it's threatening the rim, where does help come from, and who's helping the helper. And if I'm not in that equation, I'm staying attached to my guy.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about like what it looks like. And this may be something that coaches want to get and look at or even diagram on their own.
Well, if you're a pack line coach watching this would probably be a little different than what you would teach, where a player's position is their help. And this guy probably wouldn't even drive it in the first place. X2 would be in early. And if they did drive it, we would get back on the kick to the strong side. And that's perfectly fine too. That's just a different philosophy. But this is just a diagram almost exactly of the situation we saw in the Villanova screenshots of a lane drive, right hand, bottom out, top down, sliding inside that dunker spot player, to where if player one does go into a pull up or takes an airborne kind of floater or something like that, we don't give up a backside rebound. And again, if we're going to help, if we are going to task someone with helping, like we are in the diagram on the screen, frame one, yes, there will be someone open. Like we're bringing a second player to the ball. Like we've committed 2 players to the ball. There's going to be someone open. What I wanted was for the furthest player, the one that's hardest to see, the toughest pass to deliver, to be the one open. In this case, like player 3. Like player 1 would be having to take off and drive it, X5 help over, X3 drop down to help the helper, and the player that's up X1 would probably maybe even have to leave their feet, get his eyes above the defense, and jump skip it out to 3, and then we would rotate out on that. Then this checks all the boxes in those 3 questions. Does the penetration, is it threatening the rim? Yes. Where's the help come from? Help side. Is there someone available to help the helper? Yes. X3. What we don't want is X2 to converge, X4 to converge, because then the guy can just kick it to anywhere. Just pick your guy, right?
Mm-hmm. I think we've mentioned on the show before, but they're even teaching it like the NBA levels. X2 there on the corner. You're like 70% married to the corner there and 30% married to the drive. So even at that level where they're playing kind of more of denial, not gap type stuff, they're still taking that away. And then this is the popularity of like peel switch. There's more to it than this, but you rotate there, and then your frame number 2, X4 would rotate down to 3, and 1 would rotate off the 4. That way you don't end up with like 2 people on the ball, which obviously creates an advantage somewhere else on the floor. So
there's options to do it, to handle it on the ball side and not pull your help from the help side.
And I would encourage coaches, like, this is the kind of thing where you probably just need to, at this point in the year, make sure your team's not over helping. But the things that I just mentioned, like, don't introduce peel switching now. Don't introduce all these other rotations. It takes, I've heard even at the highest level, I mean, they're practicing this from day 1 of training camp, and put the emphasis on it. So maybe for next year, make sure that you're introducing this and teaching this from day 1.
Yeah. Another situation that this is kind of a repeat of the same diagram of showing the help side rotation, about how we don't want to leave the shooter on the ball side. If we do, we give up an easy pass instead of that hard, like jump skip type pass. Like my 10th JV guy can make that pass. That's not that hard to make if we help from the headlights. Right. So, what you want to avoid is 2-way helping in and then out. If you're already in, like pack line, I can live with that, because maybe they don't even drive in the first place. If we do, we're just moving out on the flight of the pass, and we arrive when the ball arrives, and no harm done. very disciplined either way. You got to be very disciplined either way in your positioning, your stance, and moving when the ball moves. Same whether you're bringing help from the help side or the ball side.
Mm-hmm.
Another situation I'd like to talk about where I see a lot of overhelping is needless double teams. You'll see sometimes people collapsing on a post entry, like they enter the post and the whole team just collapses down on the guy, or someone from the ball side just goes down and attacks the post player, and that's just easy for them to kick it right back out, and then you're in and back into a closeout. You could give up a good three, you could get driven, et cetera, et cetera. So why are you double teaming? I'm not saying there's not instances in which trapping and double teaming is a good strategy and a good tactic for you, but like sometimes it feels reflexive to players. Like, okay, they threw it into the post and my post guy's got him walled up. We're good. If he's going to score, he's got to score a fadeaway over the top. We don't need you to collapse, man. Like I see sometimes teams collapsing on some post player like it's prime Wilt Chamberlain, and this dude's he's not really a dangerous threat. He's walled up. He's going to have to take a tough two, and probably the play he really wants to make is kick it back out, and we're just giving him that play. So kind of avoiding some needless double teaming, like collapsing on a post when we're in good post defensive position. Again, there might be someone watching like, hey, we play someone with a great post player, but their kids can't shoot, so we're gonna double down and take our chances with that, and good, that might work for you. But again, when we move through the bracket, and we're done beating the teams that can't play, and we have to beat the teams that can, we have to like kind of guard our assignment. Mm-hmm. We have to guard our assignment. I need the on-ball guy to compete on the second or third dribble to where we don't have to help as often and always get into these rotations. And we gotta have, and if we gotta guard our assignment so we don't give up good threes. And I would say that, like, if you just approach defense as like, let's say you made your next game your game plan, instead of thinking about all these different things, just think about, I want to give up fewer 3-point attempts. Like, I just don't want, and maybe we're giving up 23-point attempts a game or something like that. Let's see if we can cut that in half or something like that. Then in order to do that, you would sort of arrive at some of these things we've talked about today, right? Like, where are our opponents' 3-point attempts coming from? Well, they're coming from when we collapse on defense, when we needlessly double team, when we overhelp, things like that. Like, yeah, there's the occasional bad shot your opponent might take where they just sort of pass it around and take a step back three over the top of you. But most of their threes, come in situations where you probably helped first. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And perhaps overhelped.
I've seen it too, Burn, where you drive, multiple guys help, and then a shot is thrown up and everybody's already converged on the ball and the shot is missed, but you're not in a position to box anybody out, and then there's an offensive rebound, or you do kick it to somebody and they can't shoot very well, but they shoot it and it leads to a long rebound, but everybody's currently standing in the paint, and so the ball bounces back out and the team gets an offensive rebound.
Yeah.
Like we said at the beginning, this may not necessarily happen to you 15 or 20 times in a game, but you're going to wish in the 5 times that you had overhelped in a game in the first round of the playoffs where you lose by 3 points that you had focused on not overhelping. I totally agree with you. The doubling of the post, or just simply going and digging too much, like getting too. Everybody says like, well, dig, but again, if that leads to a long closeout, don't go dig.
Be careful.
Be careful about where you're
and
digging.
Know who you can and can't dig off of, and all things like that. Like I analogize it to, say, in baseball, like a base runner on first base taking a lead off, right? Like all right, you can do that against some pitchers, but if they've got a good pickoff move, you better shorten that lead off, right? Same thing. If you're playing a team that can shoot, you can swipe, you can dig, you can stunt, go ahead, but like, be careful. You might get picked off, right? So I always make that analogy of like, you know, don't get picked off like a guy taking too big of a lead against a pitcher with a good move to the bag, right? So you've got and that's the challenge of playing against good spaced teams that can shoot, is like you're put in dilemmas, man. Like I got to guard the ball one-on-one. Well, they got a good guard who can break us down and perhaps get to the rim. Well, and okay, well, let's provide more help. Well, they got good 3-point shooters too, like that. That's what happens when you're done beating the teams that are bad and you play the teams that are good. You've got to be good also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Individually.
Yeah. Good thoughts. Good thoughts. Before we wrap things up, big thanks to our sponsors at Sideline Interactive. They're the leading manufacturers of scoring tables and scoreboard boards for high schools and colleges around the country. Randy, your Beyond the Scoreboard newsletter this week was, and where can they find that?
Well, I haven't written one this week yet, but I've got an idea in mind, so stay tuned for that. But they can find that on radiusathletics.substack.com, Beyond the Scoreboard. Those are some thoughts that I share that maybe don't have as much to do with X's and O's, but have more philosophical coaching topics to consider.
You can find out more about Sideline Interactive at sidelineinteractive.com, or Randy always includes a link at the conclusion of his newsletter. You can find that there on his Beyond the Scoreboard newsletter.
Yep.
Appreciate all of those who joined us this week. If you missed any part of the show, you can go back and watch the full version at the Radius Athletics YouTube page, or you can listen to the audio form of it by just simply searching A Quick Timeout on any podcasting platform. There you'll find the audio version of the show. For Randy Sherman, I'm Tony Miller. We'll talk to you again next week on Hoops Forum.